On June the 22nd, 1985, an Air India Boeing 747 was about to depart Toronto's Pearson International Airport en route to London. It was close to the anniversary of Operation Blue Star, so extra security had been provided. The Boeing was packed and its passengers included many Sikhs. Flight 182, slightly delayed, took off at 8:15 that night. 120 miles off the west coast of Ireland, only an hour from London, the plane crashed into the ocean. As the dawn broke over an angry, unforgiving Atlantic, air and sea rescue crews prepared to risk their lives in an attempt to pick up survivors. It was a gallant mission, but fruitless. Nothing was left of Flight 182, except for a few fragments of the plane and the numbing realization that all 329 people on board had perished. As the bodies were eventually flown to shore and moved into a makeshift morgue, the full impact of the tragedy struck. It was the biggest and bloodiest terrorist act in modern times. For once, Sikhs and Hindus were united in a mutual feeling of loss.
We can only pray for the departed souls. Each one of us had some personal friends.
No one celebrated this atrocity. In India today, these Sikhs are the living debris of a decade of violence and disruption. Their children are the orphans of history. These are the widows of Operation Blue Star, still homeless after 10 years, forced to live in conditions that would redefine the word squalid. This shantytown cum refugee camp is rarely seen by Westerners. In India, all filming is censored by the government. These sequences were shot by a home video camera. This woman lost 25 family members in the pogroms that followed Mrs. Gandhi's assassination. Now all she has to cling to are these fading photographs and her memories of happier times. For most Sikhs in India today, life goes on. It's not always easy, but it is something you get used to. In London, Yvonne Turlinger, although thousands of miles away, is very close to the suffering in Punjab. She is the head of Amnesty International's India Bureau. For years, she's worked to help illuminate the Indian government's long history of human rights violations, a subject she is very familiar with.
Well, if you talk about Punjab, it is a long-standing pattern of serious human rights violations. They include the arbitrary arrests of thousands and thousands of people who are held for years without trial. You talk about torture, which is routine, but you also talk about gravest human rights violations, which are routine extrajudicial executions and disappearances, in quotation marks. 2 years ago, we published a report describing allegations of torture, rape and death in custody, and that showed that serious custodial violence is a day-to-day event in every part of India. So, as far as we are concerned, the situation is a serious one. I'm afraid they are the tip of an iceberg. The allegations that we have described here are only the ones that reach us. Very few cases actually reach an outside organization which is not allowed, or which hasn't been allowed, I should say, up until recently, to enter India at all, to look for, to investigate the situation on the ground. So in that sense, the information is already restricted. We have asked the Indian government, first of all, to investigate the over 200 cases of disappearances which we have documented in this report. If we say disappearances, we mean that people have been taken away by the police and the security forces, never to be seen again, and the government denying any responsibility for their fate or whereabouts. We haven't received any response that the government is going to do that, nor has the government responded to any of the detailed recommendations that we have made, which could prevent disappearances and other grave human rights violations in Punjab and elsewhere in India.
At this picturesque University of Berlin hospital, behind its rustic beauty and ivy-covered walls, there is a place where true horror is relived. The sign reads, "The Center for the Treatment of Torture Victims." Dr. Sepp Grüssner was one of the clinic's founders.
There are lesions, especially by bayonets, during arresting somebody. Well, I had two young men from Punjab who had very characteristic lesions, trying to defend themselves. They placed their hands over their head, and we found fractures of the bones in the forearm. That is very characteristic of defending a blow. Another symptom is if they meet somebody in, let's say, white clothes, like a doctor, they again panic, they may panic. Two of my patients reported that they had been tortured by electricity, and the electrodes were put to penis, ear lobes and tongue. So it's very difficult to find a proof after that, because we cannot make any biopsy of the penis, for example.
This man is one of Dr. Grüssner's patients. While a student, he was severely tortured by the security forces in Punjab, although he denies ever committing any wrongdoing.
They continuously interrogated me. They did acts to me that are so vile that they are unrepeatable. The first time they capture you, they take you into a nearby room. The every first thing they do is swear obscenities, and then they strip you naked. They took every piece of my clothing off. They tie my wrist behind my back and hang me upside down. They strap your naked body and swear such disgusting obscenities at you that you cannot bear to listen them. Afterward, when you do not tell them anything, because you do not know anything, what can you tell them? When you tell them nothing, they put electric shocks to your testicles. At this time, I cannot bear children.